Hi, I'm Jen Hand, your non-diet nutritionist, and we are doing a double dose today on the YouTube channel and on the podcast. And today's topic is what is the quote unquote right way of eating? So if you're confused about which way of eating is right, whether it's keto, whether it's paleo, whether it's none of the above, whether it's intermittent fasting, I wanted to dive into explore this because I've gotten a few emails lately around the confusion of there's so many different things out there. One article says coffee is great for your health. Another article says coffee is terrible for your health. One article says you should be fasting. Another article says fasting is the worst thing that you could ever do to your body. So what is it? What is the right way to eat? And I think this is a really important topic because when we've been in the diet world for many, many years, we can be really confused. What is healthy? What does normal eating look like? How do you even begin doing that? And what's quote unquote right? What is the correct way to eat? And so this is actually a trick question. But I'm going to go into why it's a trick question. So the simple answer is there is no one right way to eat. So there is no keto should be for everyone, paleo should be for everyone, intermittent fasting is for everyone. It really is none of the above. And the reason is that we are all different, that the best way to approach food is relearning how to listen to your body, but that is a very complex answer given that we don't know how to listen to our bodies. So before we get into that, I want to tell you what I've experimented with since the age of 17. So I have gone on, I think I wrote an article for Mind Body Green. It's probably like 5 years ago now, maybe more, but it was like, I went on 116 diets. Here's what I learned. And I remember counting because I wanted to have a number. And I mean, some of them were the same, but going on and off and on and off. And I've experimented many, many times with cutting out carbs, with cutting out sugar. I've done Weight Watchers a bunch of times. I did, what is that, Slim Fast a bunch of times back in the day. I did Atkins when that was popular. I did paleo for a while, which is marketed as more of a lifestyle. I went through a phase where I was a vegetarian and I didn't eat meat. I experimented with cutting out processed foods and being very restrictive with that, and really everything in between. I've cycled through eating more animal protein, eating less animal protein, experimented with phases where I try and eat 3 times a week vegetarian, times where sometimes I have a lot of heavier food over lighter food, a lot of times in the winter. It's a balmy 6 degrees here in Colorado and snowing. So in the winter, I eat heavier foods. So the reason I wanted to show or illustrate this is because I think it is a good example of how we can get sucked into, oh, my friend did this and it worked for her, and now I must do that. That's the way to success. Or my neighbor told me she lost 20 pounds doing intermittent fasting, and that I need to do that. So the 3 big ones right now are keto, intermittent fasting, and Optavia, which is a sort of meal replacement kind of thing. The 3 big sort of market as lifestyle / also diets. And I think we get really sucked into them, tempted by them when we see people have quote unquote success with them. So if I had to distill it down into one simple truth from all the ways of eating that I've experimented with, that are out there, that experts talk about, it would be to eat more foods from the earth, eat whole foods. And that might sound simple, right? Like eat vegetables, eat whole grains, eat lean proteins, eat fruits. And when we've been in the diet world for many, many years, it actually is really challenging. And that's why I wanted to explore this topic, is because when we're exhausted from dieting and we're working towards finding our normal and being really in tune with our bodies and learning our body's wisdom, there really is this period where we don't know what the quote unquote right way of eating is for our own body, because we're so confused. We have so much baggage around this is good, that is good, should eat this, should eat that, cut out this, cut out that we're not sure. We're testing the waters, we're experimenting, we're getting feedback. So there's a stage where, well, the first stage really being exhausted from dieting and being like, well, what else is out there? What else can I do besides diet, besides be on or be off? And that's really a huge, amazing door opening when you get to that point, because some people really spend their entire life in the diet cycle. And I have women who come to me in their 70s, in their 80s, and they're like, is it too late? And I always say, absolutely not. Some people are in this cycle until they pass on from this earth. I mean, it is never too late. And we're all at our own points in that deep realization that I don't want to diet anymore. My body physically can't diet anymore. And I talk to many women about that point where we get to, it's like, we might be tempted to diet, but we're just like, oh, I can't. Like, I physically, mentally, and emotionally cannot do it. So that's kind of that beginning stage where we're just like, oh, I'm so exhausted. And then there's this period where we eat a lot of all the food that was forbidden. And this can be a confusing, scary stage, because our knee-jerk reaction is to try and get back to the diet, to some semblance of control, to security, to a known way of eating. And it's perpetuates the cycle because of the pendulum swing. We're dieting, we're all the way over here, we swing to the other side, and we're like, oh, I gotta get back over here. But the intention of that phase is to move ourselves into the middle, not swing all the way to the other side. And that can be scary, because we're like, oh my gosh, am I going to eat this way forever? Am I going to want all these foods forever? So there's also this period where we're eating more of things that are, maybe we're rebelling against something, rebelling against rules. That's kind of a part of that stage where we're eating, you know, the kind of screw it, I'm allowing myself to have whatever stage. There's also the period where we're breaking out of our box a little bit. So we realize that the screw it, eat whatever doesn't feel good either. And so we're trying to come back to balance, and we're like, you know, how can I break outside of my box bit by bit to really hear my body, to learn what works, to maybe not just have ice cream and cookies and all these things all day, but to have more of a balance. So there's that period. There's this stage where we're looking at emotions and how emotions impact food, how stress, boredom, overwhelm, all that kind of stuff impacts food. There's a period where we're bringing nutrition into it, where, you know, that's a little bit later down the road, where we're looking at, okay, how can I allow and feel nutritious? How can I give myself permission and eat foods that are dense in nutrients? And really looking at that for and from our own bodies, not from a rule, not from a mind-based way of approaching food, from a more intuitive way of approaching food. So the right way of eating is whatever is working for us. And so when I look back at my own journey, there were periods where I was still a little bit restrictive, well, very restrictive in the beginning, when there was still a lot of fear around control and body trust and fear of weight gain and things like that. There were periods where I would binge. There were periods where I would just overeat. So there were these dances of, you know, like, okay, this is what works for me right now. But in retrospect, it was like a lesson I had to go through to learn that deepening of my own journey. So like, when I was very restrictive, I realized I would end up binging. And so that I was too restrictive. So that helped me relax food rules a little bit more. And I think the listening to your own body is, in the beginning, a lot of times can be confusing, because we have all these rules and all of these shoulds in our own minds, and we're trying to find the best way. And so what if I told you there is no best way? There is what works for you, and what works for you right now might change in a couple weeks, a couple months, a couple years down the road, as you get a better sense of your body and you find out what foods give you energy and keep you satiated and keep you satisfied, and foods you like. I mean, there's this whole world of discovering, trusting your body, and foods that are pleasurable and enjoyable and satisfying, and learning how to let go of a rule-based way of eating and really tuning into, oh, well, what does my body actually need in this moment to help me move through the day? And I think it's this misnomer that there's one way of eating that's right, and we need to check the box and go through all the steps. Trust me, I know that it feels safe, it feels easier, it feels more like we're in better control when there seems to be a plan or a program. Like, just follow the box, just follow the steps, and you'll get what you want. But part of this approach and this way is understanding that it's an illusion. We never really have control on a diet because we're always on and then we're always off. And we're always trying to get back to something that wasn't sustainable in the first place. So the intention of this video and this podcast episode is to allow yourself to give permission to not have a correct, in quotes, way of eating, to let yourself explore and get curious and look at, well, what actually works for my body? For some people, higher animal protein is better. For other people, lower carbs is better. For some people, higher carbs is better. For other people, more vegetable, like a vegetarian type way of eating, more non-animal sources of protein is a better fit for them. So it's, some people do better with kind of mini meals throughout the day. Other people do better with larger meals and maybe a snack in the afternoon. So it's really looking at, what does my body need? Because here's the payoff for this exploration of learning how to listen to yourself and your body's needs. You never need someone else to tell you what to do. You don't have to buy another program. You don't have to invest thousands of dollars in some cleanse or some diet or some promise that's like, you just follow this and you'll get this result. It's like, no, I learn me as my own expert in listening to my own body, what my body's needs are. And then I don't need another book, program, diet expert. Like, you become your own expert. And that's the payoff of this path, because you don't need anything ever. You don't need me. You don't need another diet. You don't need another book. You'll trust yourself. And so that is what I want you to put your faith in, as you know, no matter where you are in this journey, whether you're at the beginning, whether you've been on this path for years, months, weeks, to look at, what if I gave myself permission to not strive for the right way of eating, to not feel like I need to achieve and discover what is the way of eating that I'm supposed to follow. Allow yourself that exploration of, I wonder, I'm curious, what way of eating works for me? And quick side note, my new ebook, The 7 Biggest Obstacles to Making Peace with Food and How to Overcome Them, and book club, whoop, whoop, is coming out soon. I think this week. Well, the offer will be out this week. It'll be out in like 2 weeks. Anyway, stay tuned for that. If you're not on my email list, hop on my website, jenhan.com, and get on there. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Pop your comments below or shoot me an email, info@jenhan.com.